If you've read the New Testament, you read about the five foolish and the five wise virgins. Virgin in this case means someone that's hired to perform at a wedding. Those were also considered virgins. Well, it has to do with classical culture. I'm going into that right now. So you have 10 people who have to carry lamps at a wedding. So obviously the wedding happens in the night. That's a weird thing. Understand the following: Christ gives a parable. That doesn't mean he agrees with what happens in the parable. He's giving the parable to teach you something. Okay? The same way, when I give a parable, it doesn't mean that whatever the judges do in the parable, I agree with it. I designed the parable to highlight something to you. Now, of course, it can happen a wedding happens in the night, but overall, weddings happen by day. In that time, when Christ was alive, traveling was very slow, especially by land. By sea, it was much quicker, but traveling from one place to another was slow. So, if there was a wedding, for example, in Capernaum, and with relatives that lived in, I would say, in Bethlehem, they had to travel either by foot or by animal, where it's a horse or an oxen had to travel all the way to Capernaum. So weeks in advance, the date had to be set. And traveling by night was dangerous. Even in the Roman Empire, you had robbers here and there, you had kidnappers, you had soldiers, or say veterans that lost their mind and were out there to just harm people, to act out. Especially in the Middle East, it was quite contentious at the time. It was dangerous to travel by night. So to have a wedding by night is not very smart. It's not wise. It's not that intelligent. It's actually quite a foolish thing to do. But let's continue. So you have this wedding by night. There's a red flag already. Then you have 10 women that are appointed to carry lamps. Why do you hire people to carry lamps? Why not put them on a lantern? I mean, there's more about this parable that's disturbing, but okay. You have 10 women, obviously slaves. They are appointed to carry lamps. 10 of those slaves realize, hold on a minute, we received lamps from our master, but we have to operate during the night. That means things will not be that visible. And we need to have sufficient oil to burn in our lamps. Because if there is no oil in it, then the lamps will go off. And when the lamps go off, we can function as light carriers over there. So 5 of them realized, hold on a minute, we received the lamps, they're here, but they didn't give us any oil. Another red flag. You receive a lamp but without the provision for it. Today, if you work at a corporation or you just have your job somewhere, if they give you an assignment, they must provide the provision. Any job or any employer that demands you to complete an assignment but they don't offer the provision, that goes against the law. And I wouldn't even recommend to stay at such a job because they're asking something from you that you can't provide. Well, they should be the one providing the tools needed to complete the job. Okay, let's continue. 5 of those women decide, you know what, we're going to purchase oil. They did. The other ones thought, you know what, we received these lamps from our master, so it's his responsibility whether there's oil in it or not. Why should we care about it? We want to be, though, let me say like this. In that time, you had those cults, those female cults that operated. You can call them witch cults if you want. The women in those cults were often hired to perform, either at weddings or at ceremonies. It wasn't always sexual performance, okay, but they had to perform. And in this case, Christ used this example because in the time that Christ walked the earth, such cults were often hired. But in this case, there was something wrong with the one that hires them. Now, the five that decided to buy olive oil, they realized that the situation didn't add up. But they also looked at the bigger picture. They thought, even though it's not our responsibility to make sure there's oil for the lamps, if we appear without sufficient oil, they'll blame us anyway. And once they blame us, they will act out against us. We can be right. We can be right about the situation as much as we want, but that won't change. That folks will look for a scapegoat when things go wrong. So we need to walk the extra mile to do the extra stuff to anticipate this situation. And they did. They purchased olive oil. The other five thought, why are you going out there purchasing olive oil? Hello? They're the ones that gave us these lamps, right? They're the ones that hired us. So why should we carry the burden of the provision? But when the moment came that the groom arrived and he had to perform, those five that wanted to be left alone, they were left alone. But now they had to perform and they didn't have enough oil. So now they wanted to get the relief from those that did purchase extra oil. But those that purchased extra oil told them, if you do this, we'll all be in trouble. Go quickly to the marketplace and purchase some olive oil. So those five did it. But while those five were on their way to purchase extra oil, the groom came and said to the five, come and perform. So when the other five came with the oil, the groom didn't want to open the door to them. Even though he hired them and they were there to perform, even though it was his fault that they didn't have enough oil, because he should have provided for them, he still didn't want to take any responsibility. He said, I don't know you. He just forfeit his responsibility towards them as if he didn't knew those women. Now look, in this parable Christ gave unto you, unto us, it reveals that being alert is very important. Many used this parable to point to Christ's second coming. This is what Babylon churches often do. Now, let me tell you, most of the parables Christ gave unto you are for the here and now, for you to be functional in Him in the here and now. Just like those 10 women that were hired to perform, but their employer or their master who hired them did not provide what was needed, they should have declined the assignment. But in that time, especially as females, you didn't have that much choice, especially if you belonged to a witch cult and you were a slave over there. So when things went wrong, you had no rights. According to Roman law, well, this changed around in the 3rd century, but overall, as someone with a position of slave, you had no rights. You had very minimum, you didn't have much entitlements. So, when things go wrong and people decide to take it out on someone, they could legally take it out on you and nobody would bother with it. So those 5 women who were slaves realized, wait a minute, we don't want to receive any beatings, and we are females, so they can go very far with us. We want to anticipate that, so you know what? Even though it's not our responsibility to get oil, let's get oil anyway, because that would work out far better in the situation. Look, what I'm teaching you here is the following. There are times you ought to walk the extra mile. Not because you have to, but because it's wise to do it. There are times you put up with certain things, not because you should put up with them, but because it's far better to put up with them, because resisting them would escalate the situation. Now, that does not mean that you surrender to what's going on and just enable it. You put up with it until you can exit the situation or there is a long term solution. And you strive. Not strive, no, strive is the wrong word. You aim at a long term solution. Look, in this world, people want to be left alone. Just like those 5 women in that parable want to be left alone. Those 5 women were foolish. You know why? They didn't look at the bigger picture. They thought, well, those employers or those people that hired us, they have a brain, they'll use their brain. They trusted on men and they were disappointed. And this shows you another thing. This parable has a lot in it, so I'm unpacking it for you. When you notice that the situation doesn't add up, if possible, get out as soon as possible. Don't wait till the situation develops. In this case, you had 10 female slaves belonging to some cult that were hired, so they didn't have that much choice. But you're not a female belonging to some slave cult in which you have no choice. When a situation presents itself onto you, don't just look at the surface, look at the bigger picture. When you notice that the situation doesn't add up, find your way to exit the situation as soon as possible. Christ had another parable. Well, it's a parable. He said, if you're with your adversary on the road, make sure you resolve matters as soon as possible. Unless your adversary goes to the judge, and the judge hands you over to the prison and you have to spend time in jail. Now, did Christ validate the Roman legal system over here? No. Understand the following here. When contention arrives, it comes in small doses, and after a while it becomes bigger and bigger. The wise thing to do is to recognize when contention comes and to use your energetic abilities in line with Christ to combat it. Because you are a spirit being, okay? And God wants you to use your energetic abilities in agreement with Christ, so that you are powered by the Holy Spirit, because you need the backup, and the Holy Spirit is your backup. Christ wants you to be active and alert. Too many of you, just like those 5 foolish virgins, you relied on your own understanding. But your own understanding got you in trouble. Those 5 wise virgins, allow me to say 5 wise women, they looked at the bigger picture. They realized we need to anticipate this, because this is going to escalate. And when it escalates, someone's going to get hurt. Now, those 5 women did what they could according to their ability in that parable. For you, I'm telling you to be alert and to look beyond. Christ was very practical. Christ did not tell you to become a doormat by resisting evil. Because when you resist evil on your own terms, you become affected by evil. Christ did not tell you to make yourself completely vulnerable so that predators can just devour you. Christ did not say that. Christ told you to look at situations carefully. That means look at the bigger picture, to examine things. And in this case, the oil was missing in the parable that Christ gave. In your circumstances, what is missing? No, I'm not telling you to have a critical eye and always look for the bad in people and look for what's wrong. Because if you have this critical negative mindset, you'll find bad stuff everywhere, even things that don't even exist. I'm telling you to examine situations carefully. The vital ingredients that should be there. If they're not there, As you notice it, question what's going on. You don't have to be like those 10 female slaves in that parable. They have to cope with the situation. Once you see something doesn't add up, exit the situation. Be at peace.